To a barrel roll.
Hey, welcome to The Note. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Chad.
And there have been some changes to YouTube lately, the way they're interacting with channels. There are a couple of different requirements they are putting into place, which now mean that a lot of multi-channel networks are dropping their partner channels. And the reason that matters is because multi-channel networks are essentially these channel conglomerates. They manage a lot of monetization issues. They help take care of content ID. They are basically the way that groups of channels manage their monetization with YouTube.
Right, they're essentially TV networks for YouTube.
But there have been some big changes recently. They've been happening for a while, really, ever since the ad-pocalypse kicked off.
Yep.
But YouTube made some actual changes to its requirements for MCNs,
Right.
which is going to mean a lot more changes, not only for the MCNs, but for the channels that relied or continue to rely on MCNs for management.
Right.
The change, for those who are wondering, is that they've started this new policy. Basically, the policy that YouTube is now putting in place for MCNs is they are making MCNs responsible as a whole for strikes across all of their channels.
Which is really scary.
Right. And it's a pretty low bar, too, for if you're looking at a multi-channel network, many of these have thousands and thousands of channels that they manage. Here's what they have. The new requirement is if an MCN has more than 50 abuse events, which is when a channel gets terminated, loses their monetization privileges, gets copyright strikes, that kind of thing. More than 50 of those across the entire MCN within a 90-day period, the MCN can just be shut down. Essentially, they can have their channel linking, their roll-up privileges, all of that basically removed, which is then damaging to every single channel in the network.
Right, and that's such a scary policy to implement. I mean, because you have so many channels in these MCNs. That's the way they function. The reason MCNs were created was because they essentially looked at media nowadays, and they were like, oh, hey, this is like television was back in the day. And then we could form this thing that it's like if you were a YouTube creator that was monetizing just through Google YouTube, right? The money that you were making was, it wasn't that significant, right? And then of course MCNs, they realized, well, here's what we can do. We'll essentially bundle a bunch of channels together and we'll sell ads directly for their channels and they'll take a cut, but then they go to the creators and they're like, yeah, we're going to take a cut, but we're going to sell ads that matter to your audience. They're going to do better, and you're going to make way more money than you would just off of YouTube advertisement monetization.
It also saves channels from needing to go through the entire AdSense application process on their own, because that can get a little bit complicated, especially for a lot of people uploading to YouTube. A lot of people are young, just sort of self-starting out, experimenting, trying to figure out what it is that they want to make.
Right.
And going through the whole AdSense application process is a bit much.
Right. And the reason that knowing this is important is because, that's the way the business works. It works by getting more and more and more channels partnered together and selling advertisements in blocks or whatever, right? And so MCNs are kind of incentivized to bring on more and more channels. And think about that, though. That's a lot of people. And let's be honest, people can be unreliable. People
can be very unreliable. And also knowing that a channel that you don't know, that you have never interacted with, you have absolutely nothing to do with each other, but they can kind of get you screwed.
Right. So knowing that there's thousands of other people that if they just one day decided to be like, you know what? I decided that I'm actually a racist and I'm going to spew it up. You just wake up one day and suddenly you're like, oh, you know what? I'm racist. Anyway, so they make a video and they throw that out there. And maybe that was like the last one in this requirement, and then it can affect your channel. That's crazy.
Yeah, and a lot of it too with copyright. You get a lot of say music companies that will erroneously copyright different videos that they say you used our music. The videos didn't use the music, have nothing to do with it, or they got a license via some other way, but they got struck because this hand wasn't talking to this hand, and so that's always a concern.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it didn't sound like the policy is going to be affected by just individual strikes. It would be more like if you receive enough strikes that your channel is then fully demonetized or pulled down. Yeah,
because if you first strike, they have sort of this escalation policy. First strike, I think you can't live stream anymore, and they might. And this changes all the time, so it's kind of hard to keep track of what they're doing exactly right now. But it used to be that you couldn't live stream, and you might not be able to upload videos that are longer than 15 minutes.
Yep.
I think that might be step one. And then you lose more privileges as you get additional strikes. After 6 months, those strikes phase out of your channel. So you can basically have 2 strikes in a 6-month window.
Yeah.
3rd strike, your channel just disappears.
Yeah, which is not good. And that's why, like, as content creators too, anybody has the ability really to go and at least report a channel. But as, you know, I can report something that's been, if a video's been like taken from ours, right, and re-uploaded
Which I'm
somewhere
sure
else.
happens to you guys a lot.
It happens a
with
lot.
all of the different death battles.
Right. It happens a lot. And so what I try and do when that happens is I always try and reach out to the creator, because the strike system is no joke, right? And like, I try and send them a friendly message first. That's like, you know, hey, I assume, you know, thanks so much for caring enough about our content that you wanted to share it with more people, but this is, you know, it does belong and it does hurt us by it being up, you know, or maybe it was up for first members first and then they put it up on YouTube and it's like, can't do that, right? And so I always give them the opportunity, like, hey, could you, you know, please pull that down, you know, in a very nice, cordial message, because I don't want to have to strike them. And every now and then you do. But yeah, usually people are cool about it, and then they're like, they appreciate that I took the time to reach out and be like, please just change this so that I don't hurt your channel. Yeah.
Yeah, because no one wants to take down someone else's channel. That's
right.
Well, not saying, okay, maybe that's a stretch. Not no one, but for the most part, that's not how people operate. Every now and again, we hear about copyright abuse, people taking down videos because they don't like what was said, not what material was used.
Right.
And that happens, but it is definitely in the minority. Mm-hmm. But this is going to affect not just 1 or 2 channels. This is going to affect a lot. In fact, Fullscreen, who, full disclosure, Fullscreen owns Rooster Teeth, yep. which we are a part of. We didn't talk directly to anyone at Fullscreen about this specifically, but Fullscreen is taking some actions as a result of YouTube's new policies.
You have to.
They have terminated contracts for about 160 creators earlier this month, and sent an email to those creators saying, due to the nature of your uploads and because your uploads may potentially infringe on the rights of others or potentially violates applicable laws or regulations, including without limitation YouTube's terms of service and or YouTube's community guidelines, we feel it best we part ways. But then didn't offer any additional details for what that means or what was happening. So that happened earlier this month. Not the first time an MCN's done a shed of creators. Remember Maker had 55,000 plus creators. They canceled all of them down to 300 creators.
Was that before or after Disney?
That was after Disney.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. So they basically shed a bunch. They said it wasn't worth them trying to manage that many channels, and they would just rather focus smaller on a smaller number of really big creators.
Right.
Is basically the direction that they went with.
Yep.
And I think they also wanted to be more family-friendly creators because they are a Disney company now.
Yeah, of course, it makes sense. But yeah, the fact that, like, I know why they do this. They want the MCNs to get involved, right?
Yes. In fact, I talked to YouTube about this. I emailed them and asked them what the hell is going on. And they said, our largest content partners are our best allies in spotting potentially abusive content early and setting an example for the entire ecosystem. Right. So YouTube wants to make MCNs responsible for what the channels they sign up do and do not put up on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, YouTube's been trying to clean house for a while, really since the whole ad-pocalypse thing started, which I know PewDiePie takes the brunt of that. Everyone thinks that PewDiePie started the ad-pocalypse. He didn't. It was a YouTube monetization thing. Yeah, so there was specifically like a cancer charity in the UK that saw a bunch of their ads appearing on neo-Nazi videos, which they're like, that means that indirectly we're funding them because we're paying for these ads and then they get money for these ads. And so even though we're not cutting them a check, we're indirectly funding neo-Nazis. That's not cool. Pulled a bunch of funding. Happened as well with UK political ads appearing on a bunch of Islamic extremist videos. Mm-hmm. And then there was a huge boycott of UK advertisers pulling out of YouTube.
Which scared the ever-living hell out of YouTube.
Oh, absolutely.
So that they went crazy. You know, they were like, they threw out the blanket pull of demonetization algorithm or whatever that went out that just like annihilated so many videos. It is
continuing to be a bit of a nightmare
Funhouse.
For a lot of people. Yeah, I can only imagine. I don't see their numbers, but thank God they sell merch really well, because I'm sure that it's tough for a lot of channels, especially ones that push the limits a little bit. And a Funhouse, I would say, qualifies
They got hit really hard. But that's one of the benefits of, you know, so that's one thing I want to talk about with this, is like being so reliant upon a platform, right?
It's tough. It's not a stable business model long term.
Right, exactly. But a lot of people are like, just guys or girls that had decided that they were like, hey, I'm going to make some videos, right? And because of that, maybe YouTube's the only platform that they knew, and that's 100% of their business and their revenue. Maybe they took off, and it's all reliant upon another company that has the power to do whatever they want. And change anything.
This isn't even the first time that YouTube has made sweeping changes that have wiped out entire genres of videos on YouTube. Remember when they switched their priorities for monetization and promotion from views to watch time?
Yep.
That one move pretty much single-handedly killed off animation as a video genre on YouTube, because those videos are typically a lot shorter and they take so much more time per frame per second for people to make, that a lot of the animators just said, we can't do this anymore. This doesn't make sense for us to be on YouTube anymore. And now animation is a shadow of its former self on the platform.
Right, and then there's a reason for why they did that. They wanted to get rid of clickbait videos, so that people would they put up something in the thumbnail, you would click on it, and they got their metric.
Boobs, nothing in the video has anything to do with what's in the thumbnail, and didn't matter because they got their money.
Exactly, and so that's why it makes sense to switch to watch time. But the problem with YouTube is it has become this humongous ecosystem, and not even YouTube knows everything about how exactly everything works with their algorithm, and what little change could potentially have these ripple effects to so many different types of people.
Yeah, you see, it's a black box to most of the people who work at YouTube as well.
Oh yeah, and we'll see all sorts of things. So one of the things that really, really affected us this past year.
First screw attack?
Yeah. So the ad-pocalypse, I actually was really surprised. We got our handful of videos, but I was terrified it was going to be way worse, especially because our flagship show is called Death Battle. So when I hear that this is rolling out, I'm panicking, because I'm they're going so strict. I'm if death
is in the name
trigger
of every video,
right? If death is a trigger for this algorithm, we would be screwed, right? And so, so we actually didn't get hit that bad. I was very thankful. But what we did get hit really hard with, has really affected us, is this last year they made some sort of change in terms of the way content is served up to viewers.
That's been a huge deal for channels across the board. It's affected us as well.
It absolutely. So we were so incredibly fortunate enough to have lightning strike and create Death Battle. It became this crazy phenomenon on YouTube where we get millions of views every episode that we put out, right? And that's this incredibly cool thing that happened. But we also still continue to create other content, right? So we do Desk of Death Battle, which is the fun little extra facts, and we do our top 10 lists, and we of course want to have more than just one thing on our channel, right? Now here's the thing: whatever change they made to the algorithm, it basically wanted to be well, your Death Battle gets millions. That's what people want to watch. So I'm going to put that.
Anything else.
But right. And so our show Top 10, which is it's a super fun show. We really enjoy doing it.
You've been doing it for years.
It's
a long-term show.
Right. And Top 10 thrives on suggested videos because, we release it out. Some people on our channel watch it. Top 10s are great because anybody can watch them. If you see, in your suggested videos on the side, top 10, whatever, you could go, oh, watch it. And even if you're not a subscriber or feel like subscribing or anything like that, they're just so easily digestible and easily shareable. The algorithm determined that, because Death Battle is this thing, it gets all these views, this is what we should put up. And you know what, we're not really going to put a focus on these top 10s anymore. We saw a 30% drop in suggested videos on top 10s, and it drastically affected our viewership on top 10s. And luckily we've
So you're almost being punished for having one successful show.
Yes, 100%. And luckily, because most of our other shows have Death Battle in the title, that helps them to a degree. But it's crazy. It's scary.
Just start putting a top 10 Death Battle.
Yeah, I know. Well, and so sometimes we do, we have some crossover for fun. We'll do top 10 weapons with Death Battle's boomstick. Right? And not for the suggested video thing. We were doing that just because it's fun to write a list for those characters sometimes. But yeah, it's amazing. And now what we do, so it was really bad at first, and then we stayed strong, continued to do what we did, and it started to, kind of rise back up. And then now it's kind of just to roll the dice, see if the algorithm enjoyed it today. Because absolutely, when we see if it when it gets put into suggested videos and then served up to people, the viewership increases, the watch time increases, people stick around and they do enjoy the content. It's just whether or not it's getting served to people. And that was something that somebody changed someday at YouTube for whatever reason, and it had a drastic impact.
And it's a pretty big deal. It happened for us as well. It manifested a little bit differently. It happened with the suggested video as well, but because The Know is a lot of news, it's very topic driven. It's a very topic driven audience.
Right.
It would come up in search. It would come up in suggested videos. It would. That's how it got around beyond The Know's subscriber base. And what happened when they changed that is a lot of that stopped. Like they just don't push things unless they're already taking off. And then if it's already doing way better than average, then they'll consider promoting something. But we saw the audience mix shift from 60% subscriber views, 40% non-subscriber views, to 80+% subscriber views, 20% or less in non-subscriber views, which means as well they're not pushing any of the content to people who aren't already watching it.
Right.
And so there's all kinds of just little shifts that no one can really control, and those impact creators pretty significantly. And creators, not just us, we have a diversified business. We've got our own website. We sell merchandise. We've got the first sponsorships so people can subscribe on our website and get early access to a bunch of videos and exclusive content and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And have our own sales team that sells ads, so that's how you get like the baked in ads at the beginning of news roundups or in podcasts and that sort of thing. We have a sales team that helps to sell stuff for us.
Right.
Most YouTube creators don't have that kind of diversification. YouTube monetization is it, and that's led to with the changes, all kinds of discussions about what does YouTube owe creators or not. What are creators entitled to or not as part of this YouTube ecosystem.
Right, and Totally. Because at the end of the day, YouTube they own it. They built the platform, and we choose to use it.
But on the other hand, YouTube wouldn't be a platform at the scale it's on without people creating for it.
Exactly.
So it's a little bit of chicken and egg there. They created a platform, but it's people who made the content that made it what it is today.
Yeah.
And so then what are creators owed? Should creators expect monetization on videos? This is a full-time career, making a lot of this content for people, or even if it's not full-time yet, enough to at least start moving into being a full-time content creator potentially. And if you aren't guaranteed monetization, if you're not guaranteed that ad space and getting money for it, then, does YouTube owe you that or not? And that's where it's a kind of it's a tricky situation there, because on the one hand, I want to say, if you are helping to make YouTube a place where people spend their time watching, then I would say, yes, you're an active part of the ecosystem. You're not a passive part. You are contributing to it.
Right.
However, if the ads aren't there, if advertisers, and this is not even on YouTube's side, this is if advertisers aren't spending money, there's no ads to put there. Right.
And then we go back in time to the pay for content model. So it's
it's tricky.
Yeah.
And then there's the other element of the conversation as well, which is YouTube cracking down on what content creators can make and can monetize. Recently, they made some changes where they were not going to allow videos or monetization of videos that linked directly to gun sales or that showed people how to modify firearms in such a way that would make them illegal. There are certain different add-ons, not a weapons person, certain different modifications that they just said, we don't want videos like this. We're not going to monetize videos like this. We don't want certain extremist videos, or we're not going to allow harmful language, and so on.
But also, in sex, right? So that's a whole other thing.
Sex is another thing, and that came up really with the LGBT community in particular.
Oh yeah, and so here's the thing, with the new algorithm and demonetization, right? Listen, if you guys are watching this, if you've seen any other Rooster Teeth content, you guys know who we are.
You know what you're getting into.
Yeah, so we talk about dicks a lot, and there's whatever. So
so many dicks.
So, and the thing is, these types of decisions affect creators because, so for example, I had an intern, her name is Noelle, and she wanted to write an episode of Desco because, we definitely want to foster internships to learn, and one of the things she was interested in was script writing. So I was like, cool, why don't you try crack it a Desco? And she's like, I kind of want to do a Desco on boob physics in video games. And I was like, okay, that'll be cool. Go ahead, write it up. And so already in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is what she wants to do. And the first thought is, that's probably gonna get demonetized. So, and we even made conscious efforts in so the script is, it's what we wanted to talk about. It's fun. It's got jokes in it. But we targeted, keep it around PG-13, right? And so and I did that. And so you'll notice that if you watch that Descov, it's not called Descov boob physics. It's called Descov chest physics. And I did that intentionally to try and give this piece of content
a chance.
Yeah, the chance to maybe not get demonetized. Gone. No monetization. And so there are times when we always have to weigh those decisions. And I was like, you know what? My intern really wanted to write this. And she was passionate about running this subject. And at the end of the day, we can take the hit on that to have that piece of content live on the channel. I thought it was funny and I thought it was a fun episode. So, but yeah, it sucks that because of these changes, it is absolutely influencing creativity. Yeah,
and it is. But on the other hand, if YouTube doesn't crack down on basically what advertisers are sensitive about, there are no ads to run on any videos.
Yep.
And then the entire ecosystem gets hurt. So it starts to become this really difficult question of what genres are we willing to sacrifice to keep the overall ecosystem intact?
Right.
Bring on the virgins.
Here's what I would love to see. I would love to see, I'm sure they already do this to some extent, YouTube offer advertisers a list of basically boxes to check of types of content that they're willing to have their ads served on. I think they probably do this already because most companies do that with advertisers, right? But I think they need to break those boxes, break them out into even more specific categories, into different levels. Because what's happening right now is I think they're just way too blanket. It's either check a box if you don't want to be on any adult or offensive content. Or,
and that's a lot. That's everything.
Right. And so I would love to see that side and it get put out and be these are what our current categories are. And then also I'd love to see what percentage of advertisers want to advertise in what space, because that could be a more sustainable way to do this moving forward. If you have your super kid-friendly Disney brand, absolutely. There should be a checkbox that's I only want this to appear on YouTube Kids and wholesome videos for adults.
Those Elsa Spidey videos.
Right. And but then also you see you've got somebody like Jack Daniels, right?
And they don't want to be on.
They don't want to be on that stuff. So, but they're probably fine with not with being on a hate speech or anything like that. But they're probably fine on being hey, or let's say it's Bud Light, or something, and oh, yeah, this video is about boobs.
Bring on let's put some beer next to that.
Right, exactly. I don't think they'd really bat an eye if their beer advertisement was on a video about boob physics, right? That's what I think would be a good solution. Now I understand that. That's me just saying that and not having to actually implement that myself.
You're not alone, though.
Yeah.
A lot of creators have said that they would be more than happy to go through, tick some boxes for the videos as they upload them, basically saying what content they contain. To say if they're, what level of maturity do they have? Are there swear words? Is there alcohol? Anything like that they'd be happy to go ahead and do that. Then, of course, you're also kind of on an honor system, and then they have to police all of that as well.
Right, and that's the way the ESRB functions. When you go to get a game rated with the ESRB, I was blown away for the first time we did this because we did game publishing, and so we were moving Angry Video Game Nerd Adventures to Nintendo consoles, and so I was like, okay, I need to go get an ESRB rating, and it was essentially first you have to prove that you are a business and that you have a game that you've created, right?
So you just walk up with a tie and be like.
So the initial is you send them here, this is my business license, and this is the game, that we want to do. Okay, you're a business. You can now rate games through the ESRB. Fill out all the information about your game and give yourself a rating. And I was like, what? It's essentially they operate under the policy of you better answer all of this stuff correctly, and I will still receive, I will receive the certificate that says my game is whatever I tell them my game is. But if they find out that I got a kids for an adults only game, they'll just they will shut my account down and pull all the ESRB ratings, and so then that will usually cause you to drop from platforms. But it's basically they operated on an innocent until proven guilty standpoint, and it apparently has worked for them. I mean, I know they implemented it because there's so many.
Why couldn't it work for YouTube?
Yeah, we could try.
Yeah, YouTube. I think this is an interesting move as far as the MCN thing goes, to try to make MCNs more accountable for what their creators do. Because it does make, if you're signing up tens of thousands of YouTube creators, do you know what is on them? Do you know what you're selling? Probably not.
Ideally, you do, but
ideally. So this is asking them to actually do that.
Right.
So I don't know that I mind them asking MCNs to be responsible if they're going to sign people up to then be familiar with their content, to know what they're making. It's
the fact that it punishes other creators. They should have whatever they implemented to try and get MCNs to take a more active role. It should be something that influences the MCN as a business specifically, and not one that also affects all of the other creators.
But it's also difficult to impact MCN as a business when its business is all of the creators.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to think how they could do that.
It's tough. It's tough. I think that
some sort of monetization withholding, but
maybe what we can see is smaller, almost like genre MCNs. So similar to you get, and this happens in indie films or something, where there'll be this publishing house or whatever, they specialize in, say, horror movies.
Right.
They know that genre inside and out. They're super familiar with it. Who they're working with is, they know what they're making.
Yeah.
They're familiar with that. And then that's what they do. They, say they sign up horror movies. If you had MCNs take a genre approach like that, if you have your lifestyle MCN, here's a bunch of vloggers, you know what they're making. Right. That's fine. Over here you've got gameplay MCNs and so on. That might help a bunch of smaller MCNs that are more familiar with their kinds. And also potentially separating it by type of content could help to insulate some genres of video from others.
Right. It could. And honestly, I think they'll probably, if this policy stays, they will probably start to do that just as a safety precaution. If
they'll break them into subgroups.
Right, absolutely. I would create new businesses under, my MCN would now be my parent company, and I would create all these other little
subsidiaries.
Oh, 100%, because what it is the wider the net is, the higher the risk is for getting pinged for this stuff. So what you do is you create these smaller businesses and you categorize, you spread your channels out, and it minimizes your risk of being hit like this.
Here's how you game this whole system. Create a bunch of those and sign up, play your odds, figure out what the average number of channels it takes to get 50 of these events per 6 months, and create subsidiaries that only sign up that many channels to stay under the average. There, you did it. We gamed the MCN system.
There you go.
I am a terrible person.
Oh, you're just a problem solver. So the other thing though I thought about was, because sometimes you get those thoughts pop in there. I was just well, what if this was used against MCNs? This policy being so open, you could set up some dark ops spy shit. You could get channels ready, and okay, here's what's gonna go.
It's sign them up to an MCN.
Yeah, you guys are all gonna
bonkers.
Exactly. Go over to this MCN and then go crazy and get demonetized or get this channel shut down, all in an attempt to sabotage the other MCN.
I can see that happening. Not even as a corporate espionage, but just a bunch of angry
Trolls?
people who want to troll a specific MCN for something.
If that happens, please don't cite me.
This conversation
never happened. Don't.
I guess what it comes down to is that YouTube takes a lot of flack from creators for raising the floor for monetization. They did that, February, where they said you have to have 10,000 views, 400 hour
on a channel lifetime. Yeah.
And people got upset about that because smaller creators who were just getting started are going to take forever to meet that floor and so on.
Right, but the reason they did that was because it would stop a lot of these channels that would start up just by ripping other people's content and immediately throwing it up there and just trying to gather as much monetization as they could before they got pulled down. So it stopped that. But then now you have.
But there's collateral damage. So YouTube's been in a tough place just because people seem to have been turning on it, just from a public sentiment standpoint. Really, I mean, it happens to any, I think, big organization or big platform like that. But really, since the ad-pocalypse, it's picked up. and people, being upset about censorship. They're saying we won't monetize these types of videos. Or, it's all added up. But what it comes down to is YouTube is trying really hard to keep their ecosystem intact.
Right.
It sucks there's collateral damage. We are part of it. We have seen videos go down. We've seen channel stagnation and that kind of thing, just because we're all at the mercy of the algorithm. And I think there's a lesson from it. It's diversify and find other streams of income. Don't rely entirely on a platform that you can't control.
Absolutely.
For your income. But also, I don't feel like YouTube is doing this to be a bad guy. I feel like they're doing it to try to save as much of the ecosystem as they can, and it means that some genres of video, some creators are going to fall by the wayside, which sucks.
And some I'm sure they forecast, and some I'm sure they don't. And it's I get it, and like I'm affected by all this stuff. We all are as creators, but I do want you to take a moment and think about being that guy at YouTube that has to make that decision. Like trying to be like, oh, we have a problem. Well, what happens if we solve it this way? And then you just see like all of the things and like the repercussions of going with any path. Like it must be just absolutely crazy to balance all of this.
What's the one path through all this mess to what counts as success?
Right.
It's tough.
It's mind-boggling to think about.
Yeah. So we'll see what future YouTube changes are in store. The YouTube Creator Summit is coming up next week. I'll be at that, so I'll let you know if anything comes of it. Last year was apparently a very difficult one for YouTube because they were freshly dealing with a lot of demonetization, and a lot of their biggest creators had lost like 80% of their revenue, which is a lot. So we'll see if anything long-term changes, but I want to sit down and have a discussion at least about YouTube and like what's owed and how it all works and what it is they're balancing, because I feel like they get a lot of criticism, and a lot of it for smaller creators is like, those smaller creators are affected, so the criticism is legitimate. It's just what's the upside, like what are they trying to do and are they succeeding? So we shall see. I think for some channels monetization is recovering, not for all of them.
Right.
And that's going to be an ongoing process for YouTube. So
definitely.
We shall see. Fingers crossed that one day you can put the word boobs in a title again and get paid for it.
That's the dream.
That's the dream. All right, let us know what you think about all this. Do you have suggestions on how YouTube can solve the content problem, the needing people to be more familiar with content, to know what's monetizable and what's not? Are content creators owed money for putting their content up? Let us know what you think about all that stuff in the comments down below. To make sure you get news from every corner of the internet every weekday, like this video, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe to The Know.
Do it.